Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today feels like a sad day in the NBA world, honestly, and I want to get to that in a minute, but before we get into it, I just want to make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Let me know if you have any video suggestions that you want me to do. I'll get to them. And yeah, make sure to leave a like on this video so you can help out the algorithm, so you can help us grow this channel if you want to be part of this channel. I'd really appreciate that. But aside from that, let's jump into this video. So today feels like a sad day in the NBA, in the league, because literally a day ago I made a video about Kevin Durant's injury, and then a day later word comes out about James Harden's injury. So for you guys that have been living under a rock, say hi to Patrick Star for me. But for you guys that have been living under a rock, about a week and a half ago, James Harden was ruled out with a hamstring strain, and it wasn't a serious injury. He was supposed to come back in a few weeks, and this was before, obviously, Kevin Durant went out, and things were looking up for the Brooklyn Nets, right? Yesterday we were told that while in rehab, James Harden suffered a setback in his rehabilitation to come back to the game, and he's going to be out indefinitely. So that's very scary if you are a Brooklyn Nets fan. Now, as the public, we don't know exactly what happened. We weren't given that information. All we were told was he suffered a setback in his hamstring injury. He's going to be out indefinitely. And although we aren't given exactly what the injury was or how serious it was, we were given a timetable of some sort, if you want to call it that, a timetable. What we were given actually was, they said he was out indefinitely and that he could be out until the playoffs, actually. When asked about it, this is what Steve Nash had to say about it.
I knew I was at the workout, but we didn't know until he'd have the scan, and so I just found that news as well. So, we'll back to square one. We'll rehabilitate him and get him back whenever we can. And who knows when that'll be? But we'll support James, and we'll support our performance team in getting him back and in his best condition as possible. And hopefully that comes sooner than later, but that there's no guarantee. So we just keep chipping away, we keep moving forward, and we hope for a speedy recovery. I think Kevin's is more positive. I think he's had a scan and it's more of a day-to-day thing. We'll see if it's in the next few days or more, but it's not, the scan was not alarming or negative in that respect. So we're hopeful that he can be back soon. And James, he'll be back when he's back. That may not be to the playoffs. It might be sooner. I don't know. And we have no control over that other than working as hard as we can to support him getting back to, full health and being able to play again. And, we're prepared for whatever that may be. But it's tricky. It's a tricky stretch for us here. We're getting very close to the playoffs. We're dealing with, many different kind of physical ailments on different fronts. And so navigating the schedule is going to be as important as our performances in some respects. So very difficult stretch for us coming up here, and we just got to stay positive, chip away, try to get better, and also not allow guys to be overexposed, and succumb to unnecessarily injuries.
As you can see, that was Steve Nash talking about how the injury for Kevin Durant is day to day, and they don't know when he's going to come back. And for James Harden, he's out indefinitely, which means he could be out all the way to the playoffs, if that may be. And that's kind of indicative of how serious this injury is, right? So think about it. James Harden, for his whole career, right, has been an Iron Man of some sort. He's been the guy that's played all 82 games. He doesn't take any games off, doesn't do the load management stuff. He plays when he can play. That's one of the things I really love about James Harden, right? That's one of the reasons why he's my favorite player in the league. James Harden has a 90s approach to the game. If I can play, I'm gonna play. I don't care. All that other nonsense can go out the window. I'm gonna play, right? So this timetable is indicative of how serious the injury is, right? So if they're saying that James Harden can be out until the playoffs, it tells you how serious this thing is, right? Because the playoffs doesn't start until May 22nd. That's a month out. That's 4 weeks out, right? And this is just a hamstring thing, right? It's a hamstring injury, right? It makes you really think, how serious is this, right? So he could be out till the playoffs, or he could come back before the playoffs. They don't really know. And I think they said he was gonna go under MRI scan today for a full review of how serious it is or what it's going to take for him to come back. So hopefully the MRI shows something good, but as it is right now, he's out indefinitely, which is really sad. And if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, I'd be scared. I'd be really scared if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, because it seems like this is the Brooklyn Nets injury curse, right? It seems like there's a injury bug in the Nets locker room somehow. It seems like the basketball gods just don't want them to succeed, right? Like, on a surface level, it seems like they've gotten the best players in Kyrie, KD, and James Harden. They're up next, right? And somehow, some way, someone up there must be in need of some entertainment, and they just don't want them to succeed. And there's an injury bug in the locker room that just bites one of them when one of them is healthy, right? When James Harden was healthy, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving weren't healthy. James Harden goes out, Kyrie's healthy. Kevin Durant goes out, and now it's just Kyrie. And it's just like, and it's just like crazy, And this is rare for a player such as James Harden. He normally doesn't do injuries. He's not an injury-prone player, right? He was a player who could get you a lot of games played, and granted, that would exhaust him come playoff time, but he'd still play. So right now, what's left is Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has to do the heavy lifting as KD and James Harden are out. And the heavy lifting, the amount of playing time that he's going to get, right, and carrying the team is going to probably result in him being injured. If the amount of work that he's doing right now and his injury background, it's probably going to result in him being injured, if I know Kyrie Irving, right? Which is going to set them back again, because when Kevin Durant and James Harden comes back, Kyrie's going to be out, right? And so it's concerning because they barely played any games together, and the playoffs are coming up soon. It's 4 weeks out, right? I saw this crazy stat that James Harden has actually played more games with Houston this season than he's played with everybody on the team in Brooklyn. So he's played 8 games with the Houston Rockets, and he's played 7 games with both Kyrie and Kevin Durant. That's crazy. That's crazy. That really tells you something about the chemistry between this team, right? Like, we know that Kevin Durant and James Harden have played together before, right? They've played together in Oklahoma, right? They could play if they need be. Like, I'm of the philosophy that great players figure it out. Smart players figure it out. Kevin Durant and James Harden are some of the smartest and greatest players we have in this league right now. If you put them on the floor, they can figure it out. They can win, right? But there's still a bunch of other guys on a team that need chemistry, right? There's a bunch of other guys on that team that have to deal with the constant in and out of rotation of the starting lineup that Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden have been doing this past 4 months, right? Like, the chemistry is going to be off once all of them are there for the playoffs, and that affects their ability to play at their best. Someone said something that stuck with me. They said that the Brooklyn Nets are like the Clippers from last year, right? Where they barely played any games together and the chemistry is barely there. They have the talent, but the chemistry and the talent is barely there. And that's exactly what I think is up with the Brooklyn Nets right now. Everything is working in their favor except for the injury bug that's jumping around in their locker room. You got to be cautious, right, about your future in the playoffs here. Philadelphia's looking great as it is right now. Milwaukee's looking stronger than ever as it is right now. So I'd be really concerned. I'm like, hey, I don't like this, and especially for a guy like James Harden, they need James Harden more than you know. James Harden is the engine that makes this thing tick, right? Before he came, the Nets were 7-6. They were barely 500, right? And he comes to the team and they win 11 in a row, right? His playmaking abilities, his ability to score, his selfless approach to the game, and how he can handle the game from the point guard standpoint, it's what makes this whole thing tick. James Harden and Kevin Durant together can win a championship. Kevin Durant and Kyrie together, I don't believe is good enough to beat Kawhi Leonard and Paul George or LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the West. They're good enough to win the East, but they're not good enough to win the championship, and they need James Harden. They need James Harden more than they know. James Harden, the second best player on that team. As good as Kyrie Irving is at the point guard spot, he's no James Harden. Kyrie Irving's talented, he's no James Harden, right? James Harden's playmaking abilities, his size, his ability to score, his ability to see things before they happen, and those are the kinds of things that you need in the playoffs. So him being out, huge detriment to the Brooklyn Nets, right? If I were a Brooklyn Nets fan right now, I'd be scared, I'd be shaking in my boots, shiver me timbers, for real. And if I was management for the Brooklyn Nets, if I was the coaching staff, I'd be pretty scared. I just had Kevin Durant go out right after he came off of his injury, and now with James Harden slated to come back, he's injured more. What's next? Kyrie Irving gets injured tomorrow. It seems like, everyone needs to, I'd be frustrated. I'd be really frustrated, and I'd be iffy about that whole situation, because there are teams in my conference that could give me a run for my money. Milwaukee could give me a run for my money, okay? Philadelphia can give me a run for my money. And you never know. One of these other teams could give me a run for my money that I never expected. A Miami could come out of nowhere, right? And give you a run for your money in like the first round. And you just were kind of like blindsided. So you need all your players, and prayers go out to James Harden. I wish he can come back. I hope he makes a speedy recovery. He is my favorite player, so I'm 2 times hurt. I'm 2 times hurt about James Harden being out. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on the situation. The Brooklyn injury bug, man. It's made the headlines more so than we'd like to admit this year. It's a tragedy, right? But aside from that, those are just my thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Do you think this is going to deter the Brooklyn Nets from a championship or not? Do you think James Harden's injury is going to be serious? Let me know in the comments down below, and like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.